Okay, so the topic we are having today is titled as Everyday Creativity. And one of the questions that often I encounter when I meet people, especially students, is this million-dollar question that can creativity be taught? And we have teachers talking about teaching marketing, finance, and you name it. But let me ask you all that how many of you really think that creativity is something that can be taught, stroke learned? So can we have a show of hands quickly? Okay. This is encouraging, in fact. And how many of you think creativity cannot be taught? Which means you are either born creative or period, right? So what we'll try and do over the next few minutes or so is try to see that what are some of the elements of creativity which can really be taught. And you don't really need to be a genius or a mathematician or let alone an artist to exhibit your creative abilities. And that is what my talk really focuses on. So we'll start off first up with a small exercise. And the exercise goes like this. What I'll do is I'll give you a word. Okay, and all of you have those notepads and a pen. What you're supposed to be doing is you need to write as many anagrams as you can think of with the word. What I mean to say is that if the word is, say, TEDxSIBMPune, if that's a word, right? What you need to do is to use the alphabets, not more than the number of times they're represented, and create meaningful words out of it. And for the exercise, you'll get exactly 90 minutes, right? I'll show you the word, and the moment I show the word to you, your time starts. I have a nice clock ticking over here. Don't invent a new English word. Am I making sense? You can't create a new English word. So we'll stick by the time, and the word which is up for you here is creativity. Make as many words as you can from this word creativity. Do an individual exercise, all of you. Please do that. It's useful, trust me. As many words as possible. Meaningful English words. Okay, so we pause here. All of you stop writing. And can I have a show of hands? How many of you created 5 or more than 5 words? Show of hands, please. Okay, this is encouraging. 10 or more than 10? Okay. 12 or more than 12? 15 or more than 15? Put your hands up. 15 or more than 15? Which is? What's your count? 17? 16, 17. Anybody beyond 17? 18? 15? Okay, fantastic. Okay, now let me tell you a small technique which has been taught at multiple schools and colleges to create these anagrams, and try using this technique. Instead of writing the word creativity flat, you write the word creativity like this. And what it helps you to do essentially is to kind of make random connections. So what I'm trying to say is that instead of writing creativity horizontally, you write creativity in the form of a circle. In this case, R is not really after C or before E, etc. Now we'll do the same exercise. This time we'll take only 60 seconds. And we'll have a new word. Wait. We have a new word this time, OK? Word will be displayed on the screen. Don't write the word straight as it was written. Write it in a circular fashion. And the word is this. And time starts now. Innovate. 60 seconds I'll give you. And now make words, meaningful English words. Write it the way it is written. Okay, so we pause here pretty much. Stop writing, all of you, please. And now let's have a show of hands. What's the count? 5 or more than 5 words. Okay, 10 or more than 10 words. Okay, 15 or more than 15 words. How many? 19, okay. Okay. Anyone beyond 19? Yes, ma'am? 16. Okay. Now tell me that between the word which was written horizontally and between the word which was written in the form of a circle, which one were you able to create more anagrams with? Circle. It was a very simple technique. And if creativity is a measurement of how divergent thinking you have, it may not be true for everyone, by the way, but if creativity is the ability of how divergent thinking you have, tools to help. Let me have another question for all of you. Okay? And the question goes like this. This is a very standard test of our creativity, absolutely standard test. I will do that in a moment. But first up, I have another question for all of you. Do you recognize this person? Guess. Galileo, right? And what do you recognize him for? Telescope, right? Now let's go back to just about 300 years back. And there was this person by the name Galileo. And he existed in a society in which it was a gospel in the church that Earth is the center of the universe. Everyone used to swear by it, so much so that on the cover page of Bible, it was drawn as a diagram. And he came up with this concept called telescope, and he observed using a telescope that, hey, all of what you are thinking of is completely wrong. And I have seen with my own eyes that it is not Earth, instead it is sun. What do you think happened to him? Was he applauded by the society? Of course not. He went loggerheads with the society and he was jailed. He was blinded and he died. After his death, people discovered using his telescope that, oh my God, this guy was right. Now keep this point in your mind that there was a person who walked the surface of Earth when everyone else believed that Earth is the center of the universe, and he had to pay the price of his life. Fast forward to the last century, and you're another guy. Who is he? Edison. And what is he famous for? Bulb. Now think about this, and he had multiple attempts before he could create a commercially usable bulb. Now imagine if this is a bulb, and this bulb is in your hand, and you look around in the room, and there is no socket. So much so that there's no wiring. Because at that point in time, in houses, there was no electric wiring which was done. Gas used to flow, right? You used to use gas for heating and lighting purpose. With a bulb in his hand, it would have been very, very easy to toss it away to the people saying that, hey, I have invented the bulb, now you make it work somehow. He didn't stop there. He fought a legal battle, not only in the US, but in multiple countries. He made sure that electric grids are set. He made sure that wirings are done. He invented the less known thing called the socket and made the electric bulb work. So much so that for the next 10 years, every single device used to work on the same socket. Every device used to have two wires coming out, and you put behind the socket. Now contrast these two examples. 300 years back, a man had to pay the price of his life. 100 years back, with the idea in his hand, he moved the whole world around. All of us in our life exist somewhere in between. We don't take chances wherein we have to pay the price of our life, let alone reputation. At the same time, there are seldom moments wherein we take an idea and revolve the whole world around us. So one of the key messages which is coming again and again to all of us is the pursuit of creativity requires one very, very important element, and the element is courage. Courage to defy the rule. And one of the things that we need to understand is whether we walk the path listening to everybody around us, we will die. We don't walk the path which everybody talks about and we follow the path that we like to do, we will die. But the point is, which are the paths you need to follow? And this brings me to another very interesting question for all of you. And we'll have about, say, 60 seconds, because I'm short of time, 60 seconds to click the exercise. What I'll do is, can you pass me this bottle, please? Here's a bottle for all of you. Okay? Now, what I want you to do is see this bottle, and all of you have got one, of course. See this bottle and think of as many applications of this bottle as you can think of. This bottle, okay, filled with water. As many applications that you can think of, and these applications need not be practical. I'm repeating myself. These applications need not be practical. Start now. They need not be practical applications. Get going. You don't have to look at the bottle. I mean, you have got one, of course. This bottle of water. As many applications as you can think of. We stop now and show me your hands at the count. So 5 and above. 5 and above applications, 10 and above applications, 15 and above, 15, 1, 5, 15 and above. How many, gentlemen? Gentlemen at the back? 15 applications. 19 applications, fantastic. Now, having conducted this exercise at school levels, where I keep doing, the average number of same amount of time, about 60 to 90 seconds, same amount of time given, the average number of applications students come up with is about 25, which is an average. Now tell me one simple thing, that while you were talking about these applications or writing about these applications, weren't you always thinking about practical applications? One corner of your mind was disturbing you, hey, is it practical? Is it going to happen? So what we have understood through research is one of the biggest reasons why we are not very, very creative is because we are always self-doubting. Who is our biggest critique? We ourselves. Now tell me, do you recognize this gentleman? Keep going, keep going. Everybody's guessing anyways. John Nash, right? More famously after this beautiful movie. Anything that you remember about this gentleman, apart from winning the Nobel Prize? What was that? Schizophrenia. Now, scientists and researchers have been puzzled for plenty of years by this very interesting finding that there is a lot of commonality between people who suffer with schizophrenia, such as him, and the people who are extremely creative. Creative not only in the space of science or art, but in almost all spaces. And the way these findings happen is by something called electroencephalograph, EEG, and fMRI, magnetic resonant imaging. And it was a puzzling thought. And somewhere in the last decade, a very interesting scientific paper came out that said that the commonality between the people who suffer with schizophrenia and other mental disorders and people who are extremely creative is only one. And the commonality is called latent inhibition. What I mean by latent inhibition is that these people don't have inhibitions, or their inhibitions are very, very low. And I'll give you an example of what I mean when I say latent inhibitions. For example, the inhibitions of information coming in from outside. The people who are very, very creative don't filter the information which is coming out to them. They don't judge people, hey, this is a person who can give me a job, or this is a person whom I can work with. No. They allow all sorts of information to come down. Have you ever thought of it, that the famous of the mathematicians were also famous of the philosophers? The greatest of the mathematicians were also great artists, like Einstein played violin fluently. So the point I'm trying to make here is that the first test of creativity is latent inhibition, wherein they allow divergence of information to seep into them. And second test is, same thing happens other way also, that whatever they think, they do. Whatever they're trying to experiment with, they experiment. That's one finding. Second important finding is this collage. Look at this collage. There are a couple of people who are less known, like Jimmy Wales, who I think is an extremely creative person. He has given us Wikipedia, for God's sake, and we know how useful it is when it comes to doing homework. Or Tim Berners-Lee, who has given us a World Wide Web. It has been time and again proven that for creative output to be generated, you either require people who complement each other, like the three great founders, or the pair of three great founders, Google, Apple, and Microsoft. Or you require people who have very, very interesting characteristics. So another research paper had this very interesting finding, and the reason I'm sharing these findings with all of you is that these things can be developed. And the finding is called creative people have a very, very high working memory. Let me tell you what is working memory. If I tell you my phone number, which is say 98458111683, and I don't allow any one of you to write down my phone number, and if you remember this phone number at the end of my TED talk, then you know that you have a high working memory. So working memory in simpler terms is a RAM that you store. And the research says that the people who are very creative have, number one, very high working memory, which means they can, at any point in time, store lots of information in their brain. But more interestingly, they have this concept called the opposable mind, like this thumb, the opposable thumb. You know, we never had this thumb. Millions of years back, we never had this thumb. We only had 5 fingers. What happened through the years of evolution is that this finger started slipping, and it became the thumb. And the moment this thumb came, it became the opposable thumb. And with this opposable thumb, we can climb, we can snatch, we can write, we can kill. And this led to the development of our species. And what we are today is much to this opposable thumb. And same concept applies to creative people, which is called opposable mind. What opposable mind is that creative people are able to store opposing thoughts in their mind simultaneously and choose none of them. They don't choose any of the thoughts. What they do is they conceive a third thought, which is the sum total of the two. Most of us take decisions quickly. The reason we take decisions quickly is because indecisiveness is a very uncomfortable state to be in, and we call them as good managers. So one of the very important traits of creative people, and which all of us can develop, is called postponing the judgment. You take the judgment or you take the call as late as possible. Don't confuse this with procrastination. It's not procrastination. Procrastination is when you know what to do, but you don't do it. In creativity, you don't decide what is to be done. That's called opposable mind, right? And I'm already there. So these people either had a pair which they worked with, or they had this opposable mind, right? So this brings me to the last conclusion of my talk. And these are the 4 things which have been proven very conclusively in the space of research as well as in practice, and which all of you can develop. The first thing being that we need to have an enormous amount of divergent thinking. When I gave you the example of conceiving applications for the plastic bottle, you have to really think of very bizarre application. A quick show of hands, how many of you thought that you can use this to hit somebody? Door stopper. Fantastic, right? Or a glass to look into something, like a lens. Fantastic. These are the sort of things that our education does not teach us. Our education makes us more convergent thinkers rather than divergent thinkers. And many times education is to be blamed for that. And equally important is this concept of lateral thinking and latent inhibitions, which is you don't take judgments quickly. So when I was looking around people talking to each other, we were choosing whom to talk to, is it not? Which is not really great. You need to allow all sorts of information to come into your brain. Allow information to seep in. At the same time, whatever you think of, you should be able to do. Opposable mind, which means you should be able to take 2 very, very contradictory thoughts in your mind and still execute it. And for all of this to be done, of course, what you need the most is courage. So that's all. Thank you very much.